Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another figure review, and today I'm taking a look at this right here. And this is the 35th anniversary Macross High Metal or VF-1S Valkyrie Messer color version by Tamashii Nations. And of course, this review would not be possible if it wasn't for those awesome people over at Hobby Link Japan, so if you want one of these of your own, then check out that link down there in the description. Of course, this right here is a color variant of the standard VF-1S Valkyrie from Macross. There is a bit of a shot of what the original color scheme looks like with the skull and crossbones. This one right here has a Shinigami. First off, there is the front of the box, and you can see into the figure itself right there. Flipping that around to the right hand side, the left hand side, there is the top as well as the bottom, and finally flipping around to the back, and we've got a whole lot of pictures of what this will look like out of the box and in action, including a front and rear view, a rear view of fighter mode, an image of the Batroid, Gerwalk, and fighter versions, and that is it for the box. Let's bust this thing open and see what we've got. So in here we have the clear inner packaging as well as the instructions. The instructions are your typical Tamashii Nations fare that kind of just fold out into a big kind of poster thing. So as you can see, there's a whole lot going on with this figure. So looking pretty cool so far. Actually looking very complex so far. But anyway, that's all in Japanese. The clear inner packaging is split into two sections. That's the front as well as the back here. The back is just the base, stand, and the alternate hands. This segment here then is the figure itself, wings, landing gears, weapons, etc. This is kind of interesting that this right here comes on a runner. That seems kind of pointless. But anyway, let's get it out of its plastic sarcophagus. So there it is out of the box, and it comes out in Batroid mode, but it does require a little bit of extra assembly. So first up is the wings, and we've got two variants. This standard one here with a flat bottom, and this style here with some hard points down there on the underside. On with wing 1, and there is wing 2. Flip up this section, bring those wings down, and then down with this flap. Click down the feet, open them up. As well as those wings and the ones I showed you with the hard points, there's also these smaller versions that are connected together. Those pop on exactly the same way as before. So that right there is essentially the Batroid mode finished. But if you do look down in the back of the head there is a massive gap. Some might find this a little bit on the unsavory side, but in here we do have these detail up parts to make the section look better. So that just squeezes in there like so. So if you're not going to be transforming it all the time, if you're going to be leaving it in Batroid mode like this here, then this is definitely a good option, as that looks much, much better. All in all, this figure does look pretty damn good, and personally, I prefer these colors way more than the original ones. That awesome Shinigami decal right there, that looks pretty awesome. We've got one there in the front, as well as an even bigger one around here on the back. I have to say, that looks pretty damn cool. Besides that, the paintwork and detail on here is great. Paint applications for the most part are incredibly clean. Most of the paintwork on here is in matte, but we've got some nice metallics. Most of the paintwork on here is in a matte paint, but we've got some nice metallics on here as well. These are very subtle and not too over the top. They only catch the light ever so slightly from certain angles, so they're not too garish and look good. As this figure is a high metal ore, that does mean it has some die-cast parts, like the feet down here, in some of the joints, down in here as well, but not as much metal as you would expect. For example, some parts like this and this right here, these are just painted to look metallic. They're actually just made out of plastic, but it feels like a lot of the metal parts are towards the bottom, so it is bottom heavy, so that does keep it standing up quite well most of the time. One extra thing I will mention, that this figure has a lot of nice little panel detailing all around the place, like up there, in there, etc. And personally, I would panel line that. It is a lot of detail that looks a little bit washed out and lost from a distance. For example, on the grey sections like that right there, you can really see the detail. But on the white parts like you can see there, it is a little bit lost, so I do feel that giving this a bit of a wash or a panel line will make all that look so much better. So as for accessories, there it is with everything that it comes with. So as for manipulators, we've got those smaller hands which we've seen already, and as well as those we've got two different sets of expressive hands. One set is like these with the big, thick Michelin Man fingers, which is kind of what I remember from Macross. And besides that, then we have a set of expressive hands which have these more angular fingers. The hands just attach onto little ball joint pegs on the wrists here, and what we've got in here is a pair of fists of both, a widespread expressive hand of both, as well as a pair of gun-holding hands of both. And these are pretty cool, especially this one over here, because instead of the gun actually slotting into the hand, it actually slips onto this tab here, which is permanently held in the hand. This is a really good way of making sure it's a solid, secure connection between the hand and the gun. That is pretty cool right there. That's a good idea. Of course, when the gun isn't held, it can just slide off like this, and then that part can close in like that. However, when you are using the standard hands, the gun does have a handle that can pop in and out like that and just slides into the hand like a normal gun would with any old action figure. As well as those, then we've got a stand as well as multiple adapter parts, the alternate wings that we've seen already, as well as a whole bunch of parts for using in the transformations. As for the articulation in Batroid mode, there's the head up and down at that point. That's a joint just inside the neck there, as well as this one that moves forward and back. And then we've got side to side. The arm all the way up. Shoulder armor can move on its own. There is the arm all the way around. Rotation here at this point. The bend at the elbow, and at the hand it's pretty much just rotation. In order to get that leg to kick all the way up, we're going to move this little section out there, and that's the leg all the way up, all the way to the back. Beautiful. There is the splits, not much. Rotation there at the knee, the bend at the knee flap, and these parts can close and open, and we've got a little bit of ankle forward and back there, and some pivot at this point, but not a lot. So all in all, the articulation here is good, definitely not great, but what you would expect from something with such a hefty transformation. And speaking of which, up with this flap, out with the wings, this section comes down, pop this down, and out with those detail up parts. Come out of there. These head cannons come off, then we have to chop these ones off the runner, stick those ones on. Same goes for the other side. There we go. Head spins around, cannons come down, and head slots in there. Flip it around, whole section here should pop up like that. This section moves back, tilt down the front, close down this segment, bring that all back up, flip that around, and the legs swing up. Bend them back at that point, and then move them up and forward like that. Legs bend down at this point, they clip in there, back part flips forward. Awesome Shinigami canopy, that comes off, then in with the pilot figure, then on with the canopy, fold the arms down, spin them around, and lastly this part here flips down once again. And finally, there is a quick look at it in Gerwalk mode, and I have to say this is pretty cool looking, and the transformation was not bad at all. Usually I'm not a big fan of transformations whatsoever, especially with model kits. Figures like this, not so much. But the last Valkyrie I transformed was one of the Bandai Macross kits, and those things, at least the one I made, are stroke fuel. This right here, the transformation, simple and awesome. So finally then, onto the transformation to fighter mode. First, to tuck away the hands, you pop this little section up like that, and they simply just spin around in there like so, and close that back up. Of course, this here only works with the standard default hands, none of the expressive ones will work. Next, flip those arms backwards like that, and that, sort of. These sections in here unlock from there, slide back. Shoulders turn down like that, arms flip into the center, the arms lock together, like that, slide them back up, close up that flap, bring that section down, these move up, then lock into place, close in the feet, push them in, the legs pull up here, lock in here, and if you want you can swap out these sections here with this one right here. So finally, there it is in fighter mode, and this thing looks spectacular. One thing I love about the Macross Mecha is the fact that they transform into planes. Sometimes, I can't even decide what form to leave them in. Honestly, I think my first ever model kit was a plane, so there's kind of that bit of nostalgia there. All in all, this thing just looks great. The transformation, surprisingly, was really easy. So finally then, we've got some optional parts. Of course, there's the optional wings, so pop out those ones, stick in the alternate ones, and these ones have hard points on the bottom, so that means you can attach the missiles on like that. There we go. And there is a quick view from above. And finally, the last thing we have in here is the landing gears. So we pull off this section, and this section, and there we go, 1, 2, and 3. So finally, there it is with the landing gear and the missiles attached. And all in all, there's no denying that this thing just looks awesome. Anyway, that is it for the review, and to be honest, I didn't know what to expect with this. I've never checked out one of Tamashii Nation's Macross figures before, and this right here blew my mind. It is pretty much perfect in every way, not a single complaint from me, well, except one thing. This one joint here on the stand always falls off. So the stand is a bit dodgy, but the figure itself is awesome. The paint and sculpt look great. I do recommend doing a bit of panel lining to bring out the rest of those details. Very light gray on there would look great, but still out of the box it looks pretty cool. And I'm definitely digging that death symbol that's on there instead of the skull and crossbones. This color scheme is pretty rad. But anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you want one of your own, then check out that link down there in the description. If you'd like to see more Macross figures or model kits in future, hit that like button. And as always, I'll see you next time.